there's a lot of other people that deserve recognition, but because of limits on our time, I'm going to say welcome to all, and we all know that I think everybody's important, all of to us. So at this time, what I want to do is turn the mic over to Senator Henry. But even after I turn the mic over to her, we want to make sure that we maintain a certain decorum. And at the appropriate time, someone will give me a signal, I give a signal in terms of when we're about to wind down. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lee, and thank you for welcoming us to this community. Representative J.J. Johnson and I are honored, and along with the Newcastle County Representative Jay Street, we are honored to represent this district. And whenever we can get together, all civics together, then great things happen, because a lot of great minds are in this room. So, Governor, we welcome you to the corridor of wonderful civic associations, and we look forward to having a healthy dialogue with you about the state of our budget and perhaps some other issues that might also come up.
Thank you, Senator. I'd like to welcome everyone to the 16th Representative District. And I also like to recognize the chairman of the 16th Representative District, Hakeem Muhammad.
How's everybody? All right. Thank you.
And while I'm recognizing Hakeem as chairman of the 16th Representative Democratic District,
yes.
I also like to recognize the vice chair of the state Democratic Committee, Jim Hussey.
Yeah.
And my partner in crime, my running partner, that also represents this district, Jay Street. Governor, we welcome you to the 16th District. What we do is you know the 16th District well. The governor, when he was involved with, who was it, the Democrat, not the Criminal Justice Council, he approached Councilman Jay Street and myself because he used to ride up and down Route 9 on his way to Newcastle, because that's where his mother-in-law and father-in-law lived. And he said that he would like to be able to help us address the quality of life issues that we had on the Route 9 corridor. And because of that effort, we were able to get extra police service as well as other issues here on the 16th District and Route 9 corridor. So, Governor, we thank you for that. You know, Governor, we really appreciate you being here today because we know it wasn't easy. The governor has met with another crisis today. And we share the same concerns that you do, Governor, and we know that you will mention it yourself in your opening remarks, but we know that it took an extra effort for you to be here tonight, and we thank you for being here. So without further ado, we welcome the Governor of the State of Delaware, JohnCarney.
Thank you, Representative Johnson, Senator Henry, good friend Lee, Councilman Street, Dr. Blakely, presidents of the neighborhood associations. We thought about canceling the meeting tonight, frankly. It's been a long day. As you probably know by now, we lost the state trooper this afternoon. He was shot in the Wawa parking lot off of Route 40. And it's been a very, very difficult day as his family members came and saw the news, heard the news, and were there, and of course, to the state police family and our state family and our communities. And I would just like to, well, we wanted to actually distract me a little bit, I think, with something else. But I'd like to start the meeting, if I may, with a moment of silence. Thank you. When you have something that, like what happens today, when you have something like a correctional officer that we lost beginning of February, the kinds of things we're going to talk about tonight, for me, take on a different meaning, in the sense that you have individuals who gave their life in service to each of us. And the least that we can do is put every single effort of our being into our work on behalf of the people that we represent. And I know, because I've worked as Representative Johnson, if I can call you JJ, JJ and Jay, and I worked together for several years on this with my corridor and public safety issues, and I think we made some progress. And one of the things that was, I think the best part of that process is we were able to get state police, state law enforcement, and county law enforcement, which JJ represents the state and Jay represents the county, to work together more so, frankly, than they otherwise would. Throughout the day today, law enforcement across our state, city, county, and state, were one. And we, just before I came out here, we had a dignified transfer from the hospital to the medical examiner's office, and it was a long line of law enforcement, again, city, county, and state, all the way in to the city. Well, for me, after the correctional officer thing, you know, I decided that the best motivation for our work is to just try to do the right thing. Now, it's not always easy to figure out what the right thing is. And of course, doing the right thing is trying to do the right thing for everybody. No matter who you are, where you live in our state, what your background is, try to do the right thing. And that's kind of been our guiding principle as we put together this budget. What I hope to do tonight is to walk you through some of these slides, to talk to you a little bit and educate you a little bit about the really structural deficit problem that we have. At one level, it's pretty simple to understand. Our expenses are growing faster than our revenue. Or our revenue is not growing fast enough to keep up with our expenses. And as we go through that, you can relate to that to your own household budget situation. You know, if your rent's too high, or your mortgage is too high, or your utilities and whatever, and you don't have income coming in to meet those, something's got to give. You either got to get more income, cut your expenses, or a combination of the two. And that's where we find ourselves. As I came into office, it wasn't a surprise. You know, during the campaign leading up to last November, it was very well known that the state had, at that time, about a $350 million deficit on a $4 billion budget. That deficit has grown now to about $400 million. It's about 10%. It's a pretty big number when you get right down to it. Not as big as it was back in 2008 when Governor Markell took office right after the near financial collapse, but nonetheless a significant challenge. So if you look at your first sheet, it represents the simple math of the deficit that we're talking about. In the gold box, you see where it says expected revenue of $3.9 billion. The key word in those first two blocks is the word expected. Below the arrow there, you can see there's an organization called DFAC, the Delaware Economic and Financial Advisory Committee. That's business people, academics, private citizens that get together, members of the General Assembly, and they meet monthly from January through till June, almost monthly, not quite. And they estimate the tax revenues that are going to come in for next year. And the governor, Governor Markell, he had to put a budget in this January based on the estimates for the year and was only able to appropriate 98% of that estimated revenue. The reason for the 98% is you don't want to, it's just an estimate, so you don't want to overspend that money, and so that gives you a little cushion. We also have a 5% rainy day cushion. The next blue box is expected expenses. Again, the key word there is expenses. So that includes not just the base budget from last year, but also expected increases for next year. In terms of personnel costs, you have contracts with various employees, teachers, and the like. You have increases in student population, which is a big driver, and I'll talk about that in a minute. You have estimates in the increases in healthcare spending, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well. So when you do the math, you have $385 million more of expected expenses than you do of expected revenue. You got a big fiscal problem. So the challenge is to figure out how to bridge that gap. And I'll tell you in a minute what our proposal is, and then we can have a discussion of it. So the next slide just gives you an idea of, the next two slides are going to give you an idea of the two main drivers on the cost side. Next slide is education. What's driving the increase in cost in education? Really pretty simple, two things. The number of students